"You can't do that. This is a violation." The shrill voice pierced the peaceful afternoon, cutting right through the gentle swish of my paint roller. I knew that voice. A familiar, escalating dread settled in my stomach as I turned to face the perfectly manicured lawn of my new neighbor, Mrs. Perkins. The woman was stomping toward me, her arms crossed, a phone clutched in her hand. "I've already called the police. You're defacing community property." A deep, weary sigh escaped my lips. I couldn't believe this was happening. Not again. Not over a fence I'd been looking at for years. A fence that desperately needed a fresh coat of white paint. My heart started to beat a little faster, a simmering frustration bubbling just beneath the surface. Had she really just called the cops on me? The humid air, thick with the scent of pine and fresh paint, seemed to buzz with her indignation. I looked down at my hands, smudged with white acrylic, and back at her scowling face, the one that had met me with a condescending glare the day they moved in. This wasn't the first time. It started with a passive-aggressive note about my barn's rustic appearance, then a pointed comment about the length of my grass, and just yesterday, a text to my fiancé, who hadn't even given her the number, complaining about our unsightly collection of vintage tractors. It was a constant drip, drip, drip of entitlement. The sun beat down on my neck as I wiped a bead of sweat from my brow, the weight of the moment pressing in. This quiet, solitary life I'd built for myself was being slowly eroded by a woman who saw everything as an HOA-enforced rule, a tidy box to be checked. I could hear the distant wail of a siren now, a sound that felt both ridiculous and deeply insulting. "They'll be here any minute," she announced, her chest puffed out with a self-satisfied huff. She was a walking, talking representation of a problem I never thought I'd have to deal with out here in the sticks. Her perfect, tiny house with its immaculate lawn and her even more immaculate sense of self-importance just didn't fit with the sprawling, wild landscape of this old ranch. I watched as she took a photo of me, a sneer on her face. "Documenting the crime," she said, as if she were a detective on the scene. I simply shook my head, my shoulders slumping slightly. I didn't have the energy to argue. The truth would sort this out. I just hoped the police would see the absurdity of it all. The crickets started their evening song, a gentle chorus that was completely drowned out by the approaching sirens. 2 squad cars pulled up, lights flashing, kicking up dust on the dirt road. My stomach tightened. What a scene. The officers, the tall, stern-looking man and a younger, more laid-back woman, stepped out. Mrs. Perkins immediately launched into her tirade, a breathless account of vandalism and disrespect for the neighborhood aesthetic. She was pointing wildly at the freshly painted section of my fence, then at the rest of the weather-beaten wood. "It's a disgrace. We have rules. This is supposed to be a community." I stood there silently, my paint roller dangling from my hand, feeling the officer's eyes on me, then on the fence. He didn't look particularly impressed by Mrs. Perkins's drama. "Ma'am," the male officer said, his voice flat, "let's just get the facts." "Sir?" He turned to me. "Can I see some identification?" I reached into my pocket, pulling out my wallet. He took my driver's license, squinting at it in the afternoon sun, then looked back at me. "And what's your relation to this property?" I took a deep breath, quiet, almost inaudible sigh of relief escaping my lips. This was the moment, the sweet, satisfying moment. "This is my property, sir," I said, my voice calm. Mrs. Perkins snorted, an ugly, grating sound. "He's just the handyman or something. Don't listen to him. He's just trying to get out of it. The homeowners association will have his head." The young female officer had to suppress a laugh. She was a pro, but I saw her jaw tighten. My gaze met the male officer's. His expression was unreadable, but I sensed a shift. "Ma'am, he has a license with this address," he said to Mrs. Perkins. Is this not your property? She let out a frustrated gasp. Of course it's not my property. My husband and I rent our home from the owners. But the homeowners association rules still apply to everyone in the neighborhood. The male officer handed me back my license and turned to her, a slow, patient smile on his face that didn't quite reach his eyes. That's the thing, ma'am, he said, his voice low and deliberate. He's not just the owner of this lot. He owns the entire ranch, your house and all the land that comes with it. You're renting from him. The words seemed to hang in the air, a final, definitive period on a story Mrs. Perkins was no longer in control of. Her jaw dropped. The smug, condescending air she wore so proudly vanished, replaced by a ghastly, pale shock. The self-righteous anger drained from her face, leaving behind a blank, hollow stare. I watched her perfectly polished world shatter. The officers gave her a long, hard stare. The male officer gestured with his head toward her house. I think you need to go home, ma'am. We've got it handled. He turned back to me, the hint of a grin on his face. Sorry for the inconvenience, sir. He nodded, and the two of them walked back to their cars. Mrs. Perkins was left standing there alone, her face a mask of bitter, defeated humiliation. She finally turned and, without a single word, stomped back to her house, her dignity in tatters. I watched her go, a strange sense of quiet triumph settling over me. The police cars faded into the distance. The air felt lighter. I looked at the long, old fence, a canvas that had absorbed years of sun, wind, and rain, now starting its new life with a clean, bright coat of white. This wasn't just about a fence or a woman named Karen. It was about ownership, not just of the land, but of my peace. It was about knowing your truth and not letting anyone, no matter how loud they are, take it from you. I picked up my paint roller again, the familiar weight in my hand, and dipped it into the tray. There was still a lot of work to be done.